Welcome to Naka Tales. Don't forget to subscribe. Today's story comes from our Amyth butthole, and it's one of the most gut-wrenching tales we've ever covered. It begins as a simple birthday celebration, but by the end, it unravels into a nightmare that threatens everything our narrator once took for granted. So lean in, because things get worse, and then much, much worse. I'm a 34-year-old woman, and for 10 years I've celebrated my birthday alongside my boyfriend, Charles, who's 38. This year, I decided to go all out. I rented a small, private dining room at our favorite restaurant, invited 11 of our nearest and dearest, and splurged on a custom menu, drinks, and a show-stopping cake. 4 of the guests were my closest friends, the rest were Charles's family. I paid my half of the food bill, covered the room fee in advance, and had high hopes of finally feeling seen, after last year's low-effort fiasco, by someone I loved more than anyone on earth. Charles did his part. He RSVP'd, collected addresses, and even paid for the cake, a rich red velvet crowning my milestone promotion at work. He gifted me a handcrafted spice rack I'd been eyeing, and I spent the morning getting my hair, eyelashes, and eyebrows professionally done. I slipped into a teal dress that hugged my curves just right, took a deep breath, and walked into that room with confidence, until everything went sideways. Candles were lit on the cake. We posed for photos, first together, then each alone. I held the cake aloft, pretending to blow out germs rather than candles. The photographer clicked, the guests cheered. And in an instant, Charles lunged forward. At first, I thought it was a playful nudge. But then I felt the weight of his chest against my back, and his hand yanked my face toward the cake. The room exploded in cheers, his mother, aunt, cousins, everyone egging him on. My friend Anna tried to pull him back. My jaw banged against layers of sweet red sponge. He shoved harder. Frosting splattered across my cheeks, my hair, my eyelashes. My breaths grew ragged, sugar and crumbs stuck to my throat. Hands flew to push him away. But he arched over me, forcing my spine into a painful bend until my entire face smashed into cake. The world blurred, whipped cream in my eyes, crumbs in my mouth. When I finally sprung up to escape, he grabbed handfuls of frosting and smeared them in my hair, plastering shards of cake into every knot. I could taste the humiliated laughter of his family in each wet spackle of icing. I remember my hand shooting up before I even registered what I was doing, connective impulse, fueled by shock and humiliation. My palm struck his cheek with a sharp crack that echoed off the walls. The laughter stopped. In that suspended second, I saw every face go pale, every cheer dissolve into horror. His mother shrieked. My other friends converged to steady me, icing dripping from my hair like confetti. I clutched at the hem of my blouse, soaked in frosting and smeared with red dye from the cake's interior. Charles stood, stunned, gape-jawed, his own cheek reddening where my hand had landed. I didn't waste a heartbeat. I crossed the dining floor in heavy-legged steps, the room spinning, and bolted for the ladies' room. Someone tossed me a napkin, someone else said, "Are you okay?" But I heard none of it. In the mirror's harsh fluorescent light, I barely recognized myself. Cheeks streaked red and white, mascara running, skin splotched with berries. When I saw the ruined silk blouse and the frosting-caked bun atop my head, rage froze into a cold knot in my chest. I washed my face with trembling fingers and donned a messy top knot. It looked less chaotic that way, I told myself. But inside, I was unraveling. My steps back into the dining room felt like trudging through mud. I expected scorn. Instead, I found only long, sorrowful faces. Charles's mother sat with a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. A cousin avoided my gaze. The silent weight of their disappointment pressed me down harder than any cake ever could. Charles caught my eye. "It was just a joke," he said, voice dull. "We've all done it for years. You slapping me ruined everything. Look at how they see us now." Tears welled, but I blinked them back. I thought of the months I spent planning this party, the menu tastings, the email threads, the surprise I'd hoped to create. My hard-won promotion, the sleek red cake, the sparkle in my friends' eyes when I told them to dress up. He'd smashed it all to pieces. "I'm sorry," I whispered, but I didn't mean it to him. I meant it to myself. I gathered my things: purse, phone, that ruined blouse. You should pay for the meal, I said. Your family eats too. I gestured to my 4 friends, who gratefully insisted on covering their own tab, but I refused. The restaurant manager hovered nervously. Bills were paid, Charles for half the check, plus a cleaning fee for the room. The clink of credit cards sliding, the hush over the table. It all felt like the final ritual in the death of whatever we once had. I slipped out into the cool night air, my friends trailing behind. They offered to take me out for a late bite, but I didn't want to see anyone like this. One by one, they hugged me, whispered that I didn't deserve to be humiliated, and pressed cash into my hand, my share of the evening's expenses. My chest ached at the kindness. I nearly broke down there in the parking lot. I still loved him more than I knew how to let go. But I knew, in that raw, dripping moment, that I'd never be able to forgive him. Not for this. Not for allowing his family to turn my milestone into a joke. We texted the next day. I told him goodbye. Blocked him. He replied once, accusing me of never having loved him, of caring only for the party, not for him. I told him he had shown me exactly what my future with him would look like: shame in public, tears in private, a punchline for everyone else. The weeks that followed were a blur. I scrubbed frosting out of my hair for days, the dye stain on my blouse a stubborn reminder of his violence. I replayed the slap in my mind, wondering if I'd been too harsh, but every crumb in my hair, every echo of his laughter, told me no. I deserved that moment of self-defense. And then came the twist I never saw coming. One evening, 2 weeks later, I opened a dust-covered box I'd stashed in my closet, a memento from a dear friend's wedding. Inside, nestled in tissue, was my cake server from that night. The ornate silver blade was still smeared with red velvet frosting. As I turned it over, a small piece of paper fluttered out. On it, written in Charles's handwriting: "The powder tastes funny. Be careful." My breath caught. I realized then that once the cake had been smashed into my face, I'd tasted something bitter. Not just sugar. Bitter. I chalked it up to food dye, but now the warning rang in my mind. I grabbed my phone and dialed my doctor. "I think I've been poisoned," I whispered, voice trembling. A battery of tests revealed trace amounts of a sedative in my bloodstream, enough to knock me out if I'd been drinking that night. The cake hadn't just been cake. It had been laced. That sinister truth shattered me. The man I thought I'd loved had planned to drug me at my most vulnerable, in front of his family. The push, the laughter, the smear of sweetness, were all part of a horrific scheme. The slap hadn't ruined my image. It likely saved my life. Police investigations were swift. Charles's phone records, the paper trail of prescription purchases, the text warning, overwhelming evidence. He was arrested on charges of assault with intent to commit drugging and elder abuse. Actually, not elder abuse, but gross bodily harm. His family, once eager spectators, looked on in shame as the truth poured out. They had cheered him on, unaware of his deadly intent. I moved out of the city, changed my name, and started therapy to heal from the betrayal. My promotion at work became a lifeline. I poured myself into the job, determined to reclaim the confidence he nearly stole. Today, the cake server hangs on my wall, not as a reminder of that night's horror, but as testament that I survived. Don't forget to subscribe if you believe no one should endure what I did, and if you want more stories of redemption, resilience, and the unexpected ways justice can unfold. From a birthday party gone dark, to a desperate fight for survival, this was one of the darkest tales ever told here on Naka Tales. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the sweetest gifts carry the deadliest poison. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and always trust your instincts.